everybody, it's Julie, and today I have my wonderful friend once again, Sue Lilly, who so many of you enjoy her videos with us, and today we're going to talk about the hot topic, kind of a pun actually, the hot topic of menopause and natural ways that we can deal with it and understanding what menopause is. And as you know, or will have seen, I've discussed this a few times on my channel. It's a big topic at the moment, but I really wanted Sue to share some of her wonderful wisdom. So welcome, Sue.
Thanks, Julie.
How are you doing?
Oh, not too bad. Yes.
Good.
Yeah.
So this hot topic, literally, of menopause.
Yeah.
What would you like to start to say about it? And then you just talk about say whatever you want, and then we can ask questions and all the rest of it.
I think the first thing I would say, and I know this is often said about pregnancy as well, that it's normal.
Yes.
You know, it is a natural process, and how you go through it depends a little bit on what you've inherited. Mm-hmm. You know, it also depends a little bit on how you ate and how you exercised in your 20s and 30s.
Oh, that's interesting.
You know, particularly the eating bits, how good the diet was. You know, and so and the other thing is, to be absolutely honest, there's not one single magic wand for everybody.
Absolutely.
You know, I mean, even the classical medical HRT, some people do fine. Some people it really doesn't work for. And the thing is, all it does is put off the evil day. At some point, you're either going to take it until you're 96, or at some point
you have to come off it, right?
You have to come off it. And of course, the trouble with what's called exogenous hormones is that the body tends to do quite sort of interesting stuff with it. Some people have found that progesterone cream, which you can't get over the counter in the UK, but you can get it from America. Sometimes that works for people as well.
Yeah, I used it.
Yeah,
all the way through mine. Yes, and I still use it.
Yeah, and it's like, but you know, if you're one of those like me, who's progesterone heavy anyway, and I think my daughter is as well, but certainly one of them I know is, you know, it's not going to help.
No.
You know, and so, like I said, there's not one thing.
Sue, for me, I mean, these days I find that everybody's talking about menopause. It is a big topic, and it's being treated in many ways as an illness, and it's being highly medicated. And yet, really, it's a transition that we've all gone through all our lives. And I feel that if we, as a society, embraced it in a different way and looked at it as a transition, and that we're not getting old and past it, and we re-educated ourselves about just what it is and what's happening, and that we're going into a new phase of our life. I feel that this helps us mentally. It definitely helped me.
Yeah.
After I got over the shock of menopause.
Yeah.
Would you agree with that? Do you think that?
Yes, I think so. And I think the other thing is it's got a lot of misogyny, anti-women associated with it. Yes. Like it's a weakness. And of course, the loss of fertility for a woman can be a really big thing. Mm-hmm. But the interesting thing is it just shifts to another level. And I think it's really understanding that whenever menopause hits, and like, you know, we know it can hit early if you've had medical procedures, is the adrenals take over the heavy lifting, or take over a little bit of estrogen provision. And so there's always some estrogen in your body, which is interesting. For example, I know from what happened to my sister, is that if you get an estrogen-fed cancer like breast cancer, the advice is they'll take every estrogen-producing thing out of your body. But of course, the adrenals then go, okay, I will now slip into supporting the body. And
Yes.
it's that transition when, of when the adrenals take over the heavy lifting that brings a lot of the physical symptoms, like hot flashes, palpitations, and things like that, because the liver is the body brain that's trying to manage all this stuff, and it's like all of a sudden it's got to rebalance things. And of course, unless you're, I was going to say, not even energetic, it's almost as if your liver is very fit. In other words, you had fantastic diet for God knows how long, and whatever, the liver will still kick up as it goes through that transition. And that's one of the reasons why the hot flashes tend to come between 1 and 3 at night or in the morning, because in Chinese medicine talk, that's liver gallbladder.
Yes, of course. Oh, yes. I never realized. I never thought about that.
Yeah. And so the liver is the main organ that's trying to keep everything balanced. And so it's trying to sort out what the adrenals are doing and trying to keep everything else in some sort of okay. And of course, with most people, it doesn't happen smoothly.
No, it doesn't. No, so this is right. So you've actually just answered something for me here, because I had a full hysterectomy in my early 30s, as you know, and I never had HRT or anything, and I just got on with my life. I was fine, and I do eat healthily, and I do look after myself and do everything. And then I get to 48, suddenly I'm having hot flushes, night sweats, anxiety, palpitations, all the classic menopause symptoms. And of course, when the doctor told me, well, you're in menopause, I was absolutely, I was gobsmacked as well as horrified, because I'm thinking, how can that be? I've got nothing in there. There's nothing left. And that's when I realized our body is so much more than that organ. And it's going to kick in. So of course the liver would have been playing a big part here.
Yeah, because the liver's got to do all the balancing work.
Right.
So if for some reason the liver has been stressed through infection or something else when you're younger, then the chances of you having a relatively calm ride through menopause is quite low.
Huh?
Like I said, in DNA as well. I mean, I come from a family that have all had very early menopause. And so I was done and dusted at 48.
Wow. And I was just,
so I wasn't
going to have any.
Yeah, exactly. But it was very interesting. I recall having to go to a blood test when I was in my mid-30s. And the doctor said to me, you do realize that your blood is showing the markers of menopause coming. And he was one that said to me then, get your diet sorted out, get your vitamins and minerals sorted out, because then means that when it really kicks in, it will be a lot easier flow.
Right.
And I had some of the flashes, the liver stuff, but I knew herb and food wise what to do. But I think the two things that people don't talk about very much that got me was when I didn't sleep very well for about 2 years. And the other thing, I had scar tissue from when I had children. And one of the things that menopause brings about is a change in the elasticity of the skin and in the tendons in the body.
Of course.
They all tend to sort of crinkle up. And so the keloid scar tissue I had decided it would stop being flexible. Thank you very much. And that is another side of it. That's sometimes what happens. And I hadn't read anywhere then that this was a side effect. I've since seen it, because people have reported that the skin changes that happen, the loss of elasticity in the ligaments and the tendons, also happens where you've got significant scar tissue.
Wow.
And of course that means, it's the usual things that you would do with your skin, vitamin E, and all that sort of thing to actually keep the skin flexible.
Wow, Sue. That's fascinating. And I'd not heard that before either. And I've been reading them a lot recently because of this issue. Wow. So this is why it affects us all so differently.
Yes.
So what would you recommend, like nutrition wise, as we were going through it? I mean, you're saying we should eat well beforehand, which is a good thing for all of you young people listening.
Very, very important.
Very important.
Because if you don't eat well anyway, you start losing bone mass when you're in your 30s.
Yes.
It's one of the things that happens to a lot of these top models. they end up with loss of bone mass, and end up with bent backs and brittle bones.
So of course, all these strict diets that many
exactly.
people are on now is not doing you any good.
No,
and there's
right.
many fads out there now.
That's right, and that's one of the things. And it's also interesting that being slightly overweight is actually an advantage, because the amount of effort it takes your body to move you around actually strengthens the bones.
Wow. Do you know, this is something I've always thought about, because as we get older, we do have that tendency to put weight on. And I used to think, well, that's because if we fall over as older people, we've got a little bit of padding, so our bones are not going to break. So I think that little bit of padding does us good. So we're right, really, aren't we?
Yeah, and it's that little bit of padding. You see, it's weight-bearing exercise when you're young is very good. So, doing tennis, athletics, and all that sort of is brilliant. But it's also making sure that if you do put on a little weight, it's not necessarily completely a bad thing, because you've only got to look at the models you see of women, that people made in the Stone Age. And they weren't shaped like that. They were shaped like that.
Yeah.
Yes. And it's nice
to... Sorry, we do have that natural tendency to put on weight as we get older. Yeah. And we're always saying, but I can't get rid of this. I can't get... But probably because the body really needs it to stay healthy.
Yeah. And so there's a lot of things that like that. I mean, so it's foods. I mean, good food. I mean, people know about. I think when it comes to things like food supplements, now things like evening primrose oil is well known to do a lot of good, and of course you don't always have to take it in there, you can put it on your skin. Flax oil is also quite good, especially for people who are vegetarian and don't want to have some of the fish oils. Then the flax oil is very good. Magnesium is key, and I think people are realizing that now with osteoporosis. It's not the calcium you need, it's the magnesium you need, because without that, the calcium doesn't stay in the bones.
Right.
So a lot of people think I need to eat. No, it's the other way. It's magnesium, because they work as a synergistic pair.
Wow, Sue.
And it's really, and I think the other thing is, if you get an attack of the chocolates, it's your body telling you need some zinc.
Magnesium.
Yeah, zinc and magnesium. So if you really can't keep your hands off it, then that's just your body's way of telling you need trace minerals, you need minerals in your system. So don't feel guilty about getting an attack of the chocolates, but just understand what your body's telling you.
Yes. Now, I do remember an incident. I don't know whether you'll remember it, many, many years ago when I was going through it, recalling having this craving one night in the middle of the night. I had to eat this certain chocolate cake that they had in Bahrain, and it had hard chocolate on the top. And I woke up, and I was at that shop at 8 o'clock in the morning, waiting for it to open to eat that piece of cake. I was craving, and I only had a few mouthfuls, and I was fine. And I remember phoning you and saying, Sue, what's happening? And you said to me, go and check your magnesium and zinc levels, because your body obviously has remembered what it's in. And sure enough, I was very low.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget that. And that stuck in my mind, because now with anything, when my body starts to crave, I think, well, yeah, I must need something in there.
Yeah.
So, yes, thank you for that reminder.
Yeah, it's always, sometimes it does very subtle things. I mean, as you know, I've not had a very comfortable ride the last few months. No. And my body started initially craving orange things, carrots, marmalade, oranges. And I thought, no, hello, we've got something going on here. And then it flipped into red fruits, black currants, strawberries, raspberries. And it's like, and this is my body saying to me, you need to look at what's actually going on here. Yeah. And certainly with the orange stuff, it's, the body needs to let go of stress. So it was back into the crystals for that.
Right. So, and of course we can talk about crystals and menopause as well.
One of the useful things in the food department is, and you can get it, Angostura bitters that they put into cocktails.
Yes, I remember you giving me that.
Yeah. The bottles aren't terribly expensive, and they last years. But a couple of drops of Angostura bitters a day, even in a bottle of water, like this sort of stuff, will actually keep the liver happy. And if you can keep the liver happy, you will reduce the nastiness of the side effects of what's actually happening. So it's a liver support thing.
Wow, this is really, and of course we don't really think liver, we're thinking, well, it's going to be uterus or ovaries or something. It's actually, we have to switch to a whole different organ. Well,
yes, it's basically it's solar plexus chakra, but it's particularly organ-wise, it's the liver. And so if you like bitter stuff anyway, fine, but if you don't, then you'll have to find something that you can eat, or that will, like Angostura bitters, will substitute for it. I mean, a lot of leafy greens actually are technically classed as bitters, but it's like it's getting the food right for that. I mean, you can go a little bit further with it. It's like if you get dandelion coffee or something like that, one of the substitutes, that helps the liver as well. And in fact, coffee actually is a bitter, which people have probably realised. But obviously, you've got coffee, you've got other problems.
Well, too much for
as far as that's concerned.
Yeah.
But certainly, and I think the thing is, it's even like with herbs. You can go and look up herbs, and you'll get a list of about 10. And some people will work with one, and some people will find another.
Yes.
And so there's no blanket, this is brilliant. It's
finding what is right for you. And it does take trying. Yes.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing, is that, and if a friend finds that something works, it's worth a try, but it may not be what you actually need yourself. Yes. I mean, there's a lot of herbs. I think the ones I knew off the top of my head: black cohosh, chase tree, dong quai, red clover, sage, are all ones that a lot of people, even raspberry leaf, because raspberry leaf tea is something that people use in late pregnancy as well. But it's really sad in a way that there isn't one thing. Yeah. But on the other hand, it shows you how complicated we are, that finding one thing isn't as straightforward as it seems. Wow. I mean, even with flower essences, it's much the same as the herbs. You get red clover will work well, dandelion will work well. And even with crystals, I mean, all the traditional stuff, like if you look at Ayurveda, you've got moonstone, pearl, opal. I found myself that the dark pink, a good rhodonite, which is a really dark pink, works really, really well as well. And the colour dark pink works well.
Oh, for wearing, yes.
And you've actually, it's one of those ironic things. It's not so much now, but you used to be able to go into certain shops that dealt with women of a certain age, and you would see this rhodonite pink.
Yes.
And now I understand why they would pick that as a colour that people would go for. And it's interesting because it's that colour pink it's a bit of white, a bit of red, and a bit of blue.
Yes, so it's got that cooling.
And so it cools, but at the same time it supports the energy.
Oh, yes, of course, because altogether, yeah. See, I'm thinking about all the things I did. Like I couldn't sleep in red sheets or anything. I wanted blue sheets, bed sheets, and it had to be cotton and white because it cooled me.
Yeah.
When I think about it, my room, one of my bedroom walls was painted that beautiful rhodonite pink. When I think about it, and what I did.
Yeah, and it's one of those things. It's always it's whether you actually watch what you're doing is the thing. And of course, one of the things about colour is that even like if you're lying in sheets that colour, is the body is very sensitive to colour anyway, and so it will absorb what it needs. And so if you start sort of realising that, then even suddenly being attracted to yellows is an understanding that the liver's saying, excuse me, I need some help.
Yes, yes, and it's looking, and I learned that along the way, and I with you learned with colors with you anyway. But you do start your dress sense starts to change on the colors that you wear, and I never wore yellow up until then because I used to think, well, I'm blonde, and I just like disappeared. But suddenly I wanted to wear the yellow, and I didn't disappear.
Yeah.
But I felt better, and it's funny how I think we have to get over to people here is start listening to your body, and if you want to wear a certain color, listen, because it's much more than just your thought. It's your body telling you wear this, and go with it and see how it works for you.
Yeah, because I mean, color therapy is still one of the strongest of supposedly alternative therapies, but it's not alternative at all. People have been using it for millennia, and because it has a direct effect on the physical body. And so it's really important to listen. Like I said, you know, I've found it when I started doing color foods. I think, hello, what's happening here? You know,
and I'll just mention here, if you're interested in the color and the foods, Sue has spoken about this on the channel. So if you look back on the channel, you'll find a whole episode of color and foods and things to eat to help you with your body. And we've talked about color on the channel as well. So if you're interested in what she's saying and you're going through menopause, go and listen to those videos, because that is really, really useful. So we've got color, that's important.
Yeah. And I think also is one of the things that people do notice is that you can't think straight.
Oh, yes.
You know, the thinking goes, and it's very interesting because one of the, there are lots of ways that memory happens, you know, whatever. And one of the things is there's an ability to lay down memory, but there's also an ability to retrieve it. And I think what happens is the retrieval goes a little bit weird.
Ah, yes.
You know, in other words,
yes,
you know that you know, but you can't find it.
No.
And this is the liver again.
Wow, so our liver is so important.
And yellow. So I always say to people, you know, get a yellow crystal, get a piece of yellow card, you know, obviously wear yellow, but if you know you're going somewhere and you need to remember things, then use it. I mean, I got some Post-its here of that yellow. Because I know if I need to remember something,
always yellow. Yeah,
write it on that and I'll remember it. If I write it on the pink one or the blue one,
you don't remember, right? And then you forget where you've put that too. I know, it's so funny.
Yeah, and so it's just having an understanding of actually how the body works, or how it's trying to work. And I think the other thing, apart from memory being sometimes absolutely appalling, and the confusion sometimes is because you're not grounded. Like it always is.
Yes,
you know.
Yeah.
And I think people notice, and I think they notice it more with women who've gone through the menopause, that there's not so much patience, no tolerance of idiots at all.
No.
And of course, this can come as a bit of a shock to partners and to people around you when, whereas you might have said before, oh yes, I'll go off and do that. It's no, not doing it this time.
Yeah. And stop doing my head in.
Yeah. And this is part of the other change. And this is when you know, the classic, they say this is the woman turning to the crone.
Yes.
And the crone energy, let's be honest, most men are scared of.
Yeah.
You know, they don't want to deal with a woman who is that direct and has got that much energy. And won't take any nonsense. And I think this is part of when that creativity of being physically creative with your body, i.e. producing babies, then comes into physically creating artwork and thoughts and grounding things in a different way, but it's lost its need to explain to somebody why it's doing it. So the self-worth changes.
Yes.
And it can be quite interesting watching yourself change that. But of course, if you've got incredibly poor self-worth to begin with, you have to fix that first before you can deal with the self-worth of the crone.
Yeah. Suffering.
And so for a lot of women, it brings up issues to do with self-worth.
Yes.
You know, and I think if you live in a community or a society that has got very rigid views of what they think a woman should be and how she should behave, this can be where it gets bumpy.
Yes. Yes, and I see that a lot.
Yes.
In my practice and things, yes. And of course we are different, and like you said, we don't tolerate so much, but in the older ages we were more revered and respected because you'd gone through everything. You were now the wise woman, you were the shaman, you were the healer, you were,
yeah,
and they would come to you for that direct,
for the clarity.
yes, for the clarity,
yeah,
with no fuss. Yes.
Yeah. And it's like, it's, people say, well, that's not very kind, but actually it is. Because compassion isn't being softy, pinky, fluffy.
No.
Compassion is that darker pink.
Yes.
Which sees things from a very different view, sees things from up here more, from the crown, the brow chakra more, and sees the long view. And it's like, well, the advice you're getting might be painful now, but in the long run, it's cut the pain down.
Yes.
And it can be seen as very abrupt, but it's the change, it's the way that wisdom tends to come through. So certainly, you know, if you want somebody patting you on the head, probably someone of my age or your age is not the person to go to, because they'll probably tell you, listen, have you thought about it like this?
Have you thought about it? Can you? Yes. And sadly, the media and society today makes us think, oh, we're old, so we're useless now. We've finished. We don't look pretty anymore. And so we've got this whole mess in society of everybody dismissing old people, those beautiful old people. We don't feel old. We're not old. No. Yeah, we're no longer a spring chicken, but we still have, if anything, much more to give. Yeah. And help. So it's interesting how we need, I think, to change or educate people a little. I think education needs to change around this subject. I think so. I really also think that you need to be taught that this is not an illness unless you want it to be, which is what you said. Yeah, it's a transition. Yeah, and it's realizing, it's like my son's 45 today. Wow. And Simon and I looked at each other this morning and said, how can he be 45? We're only 45. Exactly. You know, it's like, ye gods. Yeah. Yeah, and so okay, we've aged a little bit, but in our mentally we're okay. Yeah. Yes. So now I must confess, there's some things, because of the rubbish I've been dealing with the last couple of weeks, was realizing that because I'm not 45 anymore, because I'm not 50, I'm not even 60 anymore. It's like, if my body decides that it's going to complain, which it has been, is really, well, actually that's okay. Yes. You know, it's actually, that's all right, actually. Yes. You know, no one's trying to look like, you know, a young, thin, straight person anymore. You know, and it's that level of acceptance, I think, that comes very difficult. I think it comes very hard with a lot of women when you no longer can have babies or whatever, is that level of acceptance that things are shifting. And they are continuing to shift. But accepting it makes it easier, doesn't it? Because we're not resisting and we're not fighting it. Yes, we want to, and we want to get well instantly today or tomorrow. And accepting that, well, maybe it might take a few weeks now. Yeah. But it's that wisdom, isn't it? So we've got to sit back and enjoy our later years. And it's also watching, as someone said to me, it's like you realize it's like you're trying to turn a huge tanker at sea. It can't go quickly. Yeah. It has to go really slowly. And it's like, and I think there's some particular years in late 50s, early 60s where this happens. And it can be very frustrating when you hit that
period, but it's because the whole thing is turning, and your value to society, even if they don't value you, that's not your fault, that's their fault.
Yes.
Is realizing that sort of thing is changing. And I think when people want everything to be a certain way, it can be difficult to make those changes in your own thinking.
Yes.
And it helps if you have support from other women, because it's really at those times that women are the only other support that really understand what's happening.
That's true. That's very true. I was lucky because I had people around me like you and I could talk to, and because of the work that we do. But what I did see, which of course we wouldn't have had 20 years ago, yeah, probably, was suddenly all these chat lines on the internet and things. But Sue, sometimes I think these are worse, because when I've listened to them and read it, I'm thinking they're keeping, so many of them feel a victim because now I'm in menopause, I'm old, and they're keeping each other in this state of not being happy, because there are days when you really feel like, ugh. But it's like there's a competition of who's got the worst hot flush, who's got the worst night sweat, and I don't think they're healthy, these chat lines, personally.
No. I think it's very difficult. I think a lot of things have got a lot worse because of social media.
Yes.
I mean, from an astrologer's point of view.
Yes.
Now people say, oh, Mercury's gone retrograde. Oh dear, what are we going to do? And I think that, Pete's sake, it goes retrograde 5 times within 2 years for long periods. It's only an optical illusion.
Yeah. It's not an excuse, is it?
It's not even real. It's an optical illusion. And it's like, and I think the thing is, it is as well, I remember writing about menopause in one of our crystal books, and the editor was about 25. And she tried to change all the words, making it into this, and I said, no, the reality is this. And she was quite taken aback. I said, look, I've been through this, you haven't. And it's like, and it's realizing that, it's like if you do have a very bad hot flush, great, but know what to do about it.
Yeah.
Get those bitters, get that liver support going.
Yes.
And if you are partial to maybe a little bit more wine than you would normally have, that doesn't help the liver.
No, it doesn't.
So if you can find another way of doing it, helping the liver, then do that.
Yes, because I do find a lot of the ladies I see, they drink huge amounts of wine, not even red wine, white wine. I mean, they'll drink a bottle a day. I said, but that's not helping you.
No, because the liver's trying to, and it's a fantastic organ.
Yes.
And it basically needs all the help it can get. Yes. But if you're getting hot flashes and you're drinking alcohol, it's just going to get worse.
Yes.
I know it's sad because you want to go and with the alcohol, but realize that's fine, but realize what you're doing.
Oh, I see. So you see, and the thing is, these days we've been through it and we're older and we're wiser, but also when we learned about things, when we learned about our holistic modalities and the things that you and I teach and we've been doing, we always learn fully and properly, and kind of like we're dinosaurs now, I feel, because everybody's
absolutely
expert. They go online, they read
total dinosaurs,
and because everybody else, they go online, they read a book, do a 2-day class, and the next thing they're an expert. And then you're looking at them thinking, oh my gosh, but they don't even understand some of the basics. Now I teach all this stuff, and today I have just realized, because you and I are always talking, but of course the liver, it's just gone like a ha-ha moment for me. And yet we all have talked about this many times. But I think, of course, that's the liver. That's why I had all those symptoms, even though I didn't have any of the organs. But we understand this. Because we've learned and we've trained and we've written the articles and the books, and particularly you. So somehow we have maybe re-education is where we need to start again, and I suppose that needs to come into all in the medical profession as well.
And I think the thing is is also realization and to some extent acceptance. You know, if you've eaten very, very badly in your 20s and your 30s, then it's recognizing that as you get to your late 40s and your 50s, you might have to learn a lot quite fast to actually make up for what went on before.
And of course, no quick fix.
Yeah, and of course the trouble is, and if you've been on the pill or if you've been using any other sort of what they call exogenous hormonal contraception, your body's already doesn't know quite where it is.
Wow.
You know, let alone the differences. It's like, you know, your dominance of estrogen, progesterone is different from my dominance of estrogen, progesterone. So the experiences we would have had going through menopause are slightly different.
Yes.
Except the thing that ties it in is that poor liver trying to keep everything steady.
Yes, yes, yes. And it's funny because I was just thinking, I would go see Dr. Lou when I was in Kuwait. And she treated me all the way through my menopause. And every time she saw me, the first thing she treated was my liver. And of course, the fluid retention and all the other things.
Yeah.
And of course, we did it with acupuncture and massage and Chinese medicine. It really worked for me, but it was the liver. The first thing she did was work on my liver. And twice a year, she used to give me and my friend a drink that we had to drink under her supervision. And then she stayed with us for hours to clean the liver and to sweat it all out.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. And that's why it is so important in the process.
Yes.
And you see, and even with water retention, there's plenty of stuff that you can do naturally for water retention.
Yes.
Yes, you can go and get stuff from the doctor, whatever, you know, but you'll find if you look up herbs, there's lots of herbs, you know, it's all the boring herbs, dandelion, nettle, blah, 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 you know, that will actually do the job.
Yeah, they did. And I took them all because I did everything naturally. And
and they will do the job.
Yeah, they do.
And the nice thing is if you can find a way of helping your body as naturally as possible, give or take the individual things, you'll find that the quality of life after menopause
is pretty good.
Is so much better.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
It really is. And feel healthy and so I'm glad I was able to do it totally holistically. And I can honestly say I was never ever once offered HRT, but I wasn't living in England, and it does seem to be the thing that they push in England. The only thing I was offered once I went to a doctor, and the first thing they said to me is, "Oh, maybe you'd like some anxiety pills for anxiety." Are you mad? No.
It's like yeah, absolutely. It's part of this solar plexus chakra thing, you know.
Yeah.
And the only way you can deal with it is you need to talk to preferably another woman.
Yes.
Or at least other women who don't have an axe to grind. You know, and who will just accept that that's how you are at the moment.
Yes. Yes. Sue, I'm sure we're helping a lot of ladies here having this conversation today, which is I wanted to pull in your real expertise here. So we're looking at saying the liver is what we need to support the most in menopause, the colour yellow, but also watching out for the colours that we wear or are pulled to wear, and even painting our bedrooms and what we sleep in and everything.
Yeah, what you're eating.
And what we're eating, yes, because it does help. Crystals, moonstone. I use clear quartz as well. It was very cooling for me.
Yes, I found that rhodonite was good for me. Like we said, you and I have different hormones playing the fiddle for that one. And I even find now moonstone, proper moonstone, which is the classic Ayurveda stone for it, it's woman's stone. It's really, really good. But then it's it's like clear quartz can be. It's got a gentleness about it,
and it just clears. And it was I used my Reiki
and opal and Reiki.
Opal,
I mean, reflexology can be very, very good for somebody, you know, especially if you're really suffering. You know, they might dig around a bit in the sole of your foot for your liver, but yeah, definitely, you know, it's worth a go.
Remember, mine was always sore. Now you've got all the memories back. It was always good. Dr. Lou would push a little bit more.
Yeah, I was just going to say, yeah.
But it was good. Yeah, so these are really basic things. Of course, our herbs, our dandelions, our sage, our black coal hash, crystals, colour, nutrition.
Aromatherapy, if you've got a good aromatherapist, then, you know, to actually help the body deal with things.
Yes, and our peace of mind, because of
But
course
you
our
see,
heads all
yeah,
over.
even in the old days, you said there would have been the old woman on the edge of the village who nobody would admit talking to, who knew how to do all this stuff.
Yes, yes, yeah. Because I always remember my grandmother, she'd say, oh, we need to be kind to her, she's on the change. We used to call it the change. And we used to go, what are you going on about? She's cranky and she's on the change, just be kinder to her. And now it all comes together beautifully now. And of course, in the old days, we were known as the crone. You wore the sovereignty, the crown of the crone, or you'd gone into your sovereignty. You were the wise person. You were to be revered. In China today, to a certain extent, it's like that still. It's just in our Western ways. So there is so much to look forward to once you're through it. Embrace the transition, because that's all you can do, really.
Yeah. And I found, for one of the better phrase, people take me a lot more seriously nowadays.
Yes, that's right. Yes.
And sometimes that's quite unexpected, or they say something, I said, and you sort of say, I wasn't born yesterday. And I thought, no, a lot more yesterdays ago.
Yeah. We are. Sue, of course, I'll ask you one more question, actually, because I don't know whether it's relevant, but like, does astrology, I mean, I know astrology plays a huge part in our lives. Does astrology play a part in our menopausal life?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, there's the second Saturn's return, which happens to most people between about 58 and 59, should be the end of the transition. And the stuff that happens, which is Chiron return, which is 48, 49, 50,
yes,
if it hasn't started before then, that is often the time when it starts. And of course, one thing about the Chiron is that if there's anything that really messed up from when you were younger, it will bring it to the surface to get fixed. And so it's a good time to spend a fair bit of your own time on you around 48, 49, 50, and again at 58, 59, 60, because it's a different sort of change going on then. It's like the actual physical hormonal stuff should have gone through, but sometimes the emotional and mental stuff hasn't processed completely.
Oh, that makes a lot of sense. Yes.
That tends to come a little bit later. And, and don't think it's just for women,
Oh, it's not,
because you see exactly the same things happening in men, but they've not got a hook to hang it on.
No.
Whereas at least we have something we can label it with.
Yes, whereas they don't, and they do suffer.
They do. Yeah.
They really do. Yes.
Yeah, and you see them, particularly the 58, 59, where they're actually trying to make the final transition, if you like, the more spiritual transition, and all the emotional and mental stuff comes up. You really, really notice it then. And of course, even in Chinese medicine, the 48, 49, 50 can actually be when health issues surface. And so that's why the physical healing needs to be sorted out then, if you can.
Yes.
But yes, it's very interesting, because very little has been written down about people astrologically as you get older. So there's a whole lot of stuff people never wrote it down. Of course, they're now having to write it down. But you sort of have to live it a bit first
to understand it, to go through it. Yes, of course. There we are, Sue. We've got another whole project for you here.
I know that it's already about 10th in line at the moment, actually. But yes, I'm very, very aware that it's something that actually needs writing about, so that people, where they are in that early crone or whatever the wise man stage is actually what's going on.
I think that's, the sooner we write that, the better, because I see it, because as you know, when we're working in this field, of course, as we go through things, we attract that to help others anyway. And it's been fascinating for me watching this whole journey and taking people through, and being able to help them through, because you have been through it, putting things into perspective.
Yeah, and I think it's that old saying, things will pass.
Yes.
You might not think it will, but things will pass, one way or the other.
One way, yeah, that's true.
Have a good sense of humor, Ed. He's really good.
Yeah, that's the other thing. Yes.
But it is. I think it's like I say, it is fascinating. watching the sort of 47-year-olds and over that as they try to deal with this stuff. And it's big stuff.
It's huge.
It's big stuff.
Yeah, it is big stuff. And for me, I also had the Reiki, which helps with mind and body. It's not about healing others, it's about yourself. Wow, for me, that was so beneficial, because it put everything into perspective, and just helped me to stay calmer, especially when I was having one of those, hot flush tantrums. And but you go back to that and go back to the principles, and we got through it so much easier. So hopefully, Sue, you and I can help people. Hopefully this will help people. Is there anything else you'd like to say before we close? And we can come back and talk about this subject again in a few months.
I think the main thing is don't suffer in silence, but at the same time, have a bit of discrimination when you're surfing through social media for answers. Definitely. And funnily enough, discrimination is yellow as well. So
fancy
that. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Yes, that's true. And that to me is one of the biggest things. And try and find a few ladies that you really trust.
Yeah. And that basically have been through some stuff, or even if they try stuff that doesn't work for you, at least then you're still on the hunt. You're still looking for something.
Yes. I have one question. I know I'm probably going to really upset lots of people now with this one, but you and I are not afraid to say these things. They're suggesting now that women who work should be given time off in menopause because they're sick. I personally don't agree with that, because we went through it. I mean, there are days when you feel really yucky, and maybe we should have a little bit of compassion.
Yes, I was going to say a bit of compassion and understanding.
Yes.
But I think sometimes work is the one thing that holds you together.
Yes.
And if someone's sort of, and again, it's treating it like an illness, and it's like they've got to get used to women, like women who are pregnant, women whose periods are on, or women in menopause, that they're not like men.
Yes.
That's the whole point.
Yes, we're not like men. We're probably going to get into all sorts of trouble now,
I know, but the thing is, it's like there's been too much about women's stuff being swept under the carpet.
Yes.
And you see it now even with especially in the UK at the moment. Oh, women politicians trying to be men.
Yes.
And you think, for heaven's sake,
yes,
you're the other part of the balance.
Yes.
You're not meant to be the same.
No, we have a different energy to bring to the balance.
And I think, yes, all right, if you're really feeling terribly, terribly, terribly rough, to phone in and say, look, I'm just not going to make it today. I remember doing that when I was pregnant. I used to get to Thursdays and I'd have to phone up and say, I'm sorry, and I'd be flat out for the day. About 3 weeks on the trot that happened. And it was because of the changes in the hormones. And it's like, but it's the understanding. It's like, well, that's okay.
Yes.
Yes. And you shouldn't have to explain in detail.
No.
Especially to a man, what's going on. But equally so, they shouldn't be making it too special. Yes, it's special. There's a really special process going on, but there's making it special and there's making it special.
Yeah, exactly. And we're still able.
Yes.
So that's the thing. Yes.
And it may be that the ability is shifting to slightly different places, but the ability is there.
Yes. Oh, Sue, as always, it's been wonderful talking to you. We'll definitely come back to this subject again, I'm sure. We'll do more of the astrology stuff with it.
Yeah, I think we ruffled a few feathers.
We probably have, but that's okay. Yeah, that's okay. That's what we're here for. And we're just women being women.
That's right.
I think. And I've just realized I've got my shaman behind me. So, that wise energy.
Yeah, and it's basically, yes, you are who you are.
Yes, exactly. And we should be proud to be a menopausal woman, or a woman that's gone through it. We should be proud to be the crone, or wearing our crown.
Yeah, and you say, and if people don't like it, they know what they can do.
Yes.
Basically.
And we're still beautiful. We are still beautiful. So I think that's what we need to remember. Well, thank you so much, Sue. And if you have enjoyed listening to this, please do like and subscribe if you haven't already subscribed. And do look on earlier videos for Sue's comments on food and colour, because it all joins in with what we've just talked about today. Really enjoyed talking to you. Thank you again, Sue.
And you're welcome. Great to see you again.
Thank you. And I really look forward to talking to you all again soon. Thank you for listening.